It's finally time to work on the test bench. I know I've been talking about it for about a month or so. Been working on other stuff, haven't really gotten around to it. Last night I was sitting around thinking, tomorrow's gonna be 5 days since I posted a video, what should I do? The reason I was putting this off is I didn't have plans. I normally like to try and figure out how to lay everything out and do it. That wasn't the way to attack this project. So last night I came out here, grabbed the camera, started filming some stuff. I'm gonna have to cut up the footage. It was a little bit disjointed and weird. We're gonna insert some of that here. But I figured it was time to finally get going on this, and I'm sitting here looking at its awesomeness right now. But we're gonna start off with the old batteries that were sitting over here in the corner of the garage. If you remember those from a few videos ago, we revived them back from, well, they were like batteries from 2010. I got a few interesting comments about that, like, oh, this guy has no idea what he's doing, and concrete floors are going to destroy those and all this, which I thought was kind of funny, but I addressed that concrete floor concern. So let's start there. If you remember those batteries that we revived a few weeks ago, those have been sitting over here in the corner of the garage, right back there, ever since we last touched them. On the concrete floor. So the story behind batteries going bad when they're sitting on concrete floors is concrete floors are cold. They're really good at disseminating heat. So car batteries, when they get cold, they don't have the same cranking power. Like when you go outside and it's 20 below and you try to start your car, it may have some trouble. If you do the same thing when it's like 95 degrees outside, not a problem. So the batteries aren't getting drained, they're simply getting colder, which means they don't have as much amperage to be able to put out as readily. All that being said, let's see if I was a crazy person screwing around with these batteries, trying to revive them. What was the date on these things? Oh yeah, 2010. So let's hook up the voltmeter and see how much voltage has dropped in this time they've just been sitting here in the garage, not being touched. So this will be a really good indication of whether they are bad or if they are usable, maybe. Hey, it's 11.8 volts. Obviously not 12, but it's not 1 or 2 volts, or less than a volt. So I think these batteries might be okay. Hey, this one's at 12.09 volts. All right, cool. So, as it turns out, they were just really old, and they needed to be charged and kind of brought back to life. Now again, I would not put these in a power chair. These are only going to be used for testing purposes because they may not have much capacity. We'll find out once we get the test bench hooked up and get motors on there and start spinning them up and, seeing what kind of voltage drop we get when they're under load. So there's a charger already mounted right there. And the plan is to put the batteries here, and then we may put the controller in this little slot here, which is currently filled with Ford van power window motors. All right, before we get too carried away, I pulled out a bin of parts that came off of actually I think it was off of that Invacare that's over there. This one had a whole mess of adaptive controls and a bunch of stuff on it, so I had to keep everything together. The Invacare chairs do not auto-detect things, and if you try to power them up with parts missing, yeah, they get cranky. So what we've got going on here, the batteries are in here. They're connected up with their normal connection method. And there is fusing in there, by the way. Then our cable comes up here. This is a Mark 6 controller. We've got power connector. We've got our 2 motors. These are not the motors that came on this chair. They're a lot larger, so they should spin, but things are going to be cranky. But yeah, let's power this up and see what happens. Now with these Invacare chairs, configuration missing for the legs. Yeah, those are not connected. This yellow and black wire right here needs to be connected to something, and it's not, so it knows that. So we hit reset. Warning, you may have problems. Okay. What I was going to say is the battery gauge is probably going to show something funky because these chairs use current sensing, and it has no idea if these batteries have been charged. It monitors the voltage going in and out, or the current going in and out and all that stuff. So anyways, let's see what happens here. Exactly nothing. It says ready to drive. It says driving, but it's clearly not. I just discovered the problem. So I've got the other control over here. This is one that does work with MK6. I was looking at this. This is for the Shark system. So it's not even made for that joystick. It's not the one that came with this chair. I was noticing the pinouts are pretty significantly different. So that's why it didn't work. It's the wrong controller for that joystick. It is not even slightly compatible. I'm not sure why I started with Invacare. Control inhibited. Let me grab a different joystick. And then we're going to plug a joystick straight into this and eliminate this pile of stuff down here. This is why I love RNet control systems so much. Everything auto-detects. You don't have to worry about keeping all the hardware together. So we've got a joystick here, which has been repaired maybe. That's plugged right into the controller. So let's see what happens. Hey! Alright, seems to work. I'm gonna have to dig around through all of my baggage in here and find another controller that will work with the MK6i color or grayscale display joystick. I need to be able to hook one up and put SD cards in and make changes and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, I think proof of concept, this seems to work. So the way we're gonna do it, I'm gonna clear off all this. We're gonna mount a couple of controllers here. I've got an RNet one in there, and I've got some random like junky joysticks that I can use. I'm just gonna mount Quantum, an Invacare, and an RNet on here. And then same thing, Invacare, RNet, Quantum, and should be room for all three of those here. I'm gonna make up some adapters so I can just plug in using these Anderson connectors. And we can just plug in which power to whichever control system we wanna use. And as far as having motors, I'm not going to keep all the motors up here because 6 motors up here would be kind of obnoxious. I've got them all sorted in there, so I can just grab the ones I need depending on what project we're working on. And yeah. So I'll be... Ooh. Weird thumping in my left ear. Ugh. So, among other things, I have a hole inside my head between my brain cavity and my inner ear canal. Boy, that feels strange sometimes. Anyways, I'm going to keep working on this. I'm going to try and figure out a little more layout, probably get some stuff mounted, and then I'll pick up the camera in the morning, because it's like 12:30 at night right now. I'm actually probably going to go to bed here shortly, but tomorrow morning, I'll work on this more, and then we'll see where we're at. It's morning. That means 2 things. 1, I'm tired. And 2, I don't know. I just picked a number at random. Let's go out into the garage and see where we left off last night. So not much has changed out here. I said I was going to work on this some more. I haven't necessarily done that, but I think I'm going to do that now because I apparently need to wake up more. I've been up for 2 hours now, but man, I crashed out last night. I woke up in the same position that I fell asleep in, and that's about the range of motion of my hands at the moment. It'll get better. But yeah, I'm going to mount some things up, and then I'll be back. Okay, it's been a couple hours. Progress has been made on the test bench. This is one of those things that I can't really plan out. I just kind of have to start building and see where we end up. But I've got 3 controllers mounted on here right now. We've got QLogic 1, Quantum, MK6i, and RNet 90 amp. RNet. But anyways, so I've got the pigtails coming out here. I've got them attached. Same with the Quantum. And I just attached all those basically. Now, in the case of the MK6i, some of these joysticks use these flat 7-pin connectors, and other ones use, where'd it go? This style of connector. So I've got the adapter coiled up right here, so we can plug that in if needed right here, or we can just unplug this and hook in a regular joystick connector. So what I'm working on right now is wiring. Since a lot of this stuff has tons of extra wire, I'm kind of coiling stuff up, getting the adapters I need together. Right now, we are able to power up, I think the Invacare one. And this is an old broken joystick. It does have the SD card programming slot on it. So I'm gonna grab that card and get it hooked up. Oh, that's good. It says left brake fault. That means I think this one is actually gonna work. Yeah, it looks like the joystick is all right. So I'll get that programmed up. I've got some parts down here on the floor so we can make a wiring harness adapter to go from Anderson, grabber stick. To go from Anderson to the Arnett PG drives style connector like this. This particular cable just has some bolt holes in the end of it. And if we look down here on the floor, we can see we've got an Anderson connector that terminates in screws. Basically, all I'm going to do is put a couple bolts through these, tape everything up good, and then we'll have our adapter for Arnett. Now, the adapter for Quantum, I need to look around. Oh, actually, this chair frame over here has the wiring on it. Okay, I'll pull it off of there. All right, we're good. So yeah, progress update. I've got some motors up here. These things are filthy, but these are the connectors that Quantum uses. I was gonna say Quantum / Pride, but the actual Pride Invacare connectors are different. So we got some of those motors as well. I think what I'm gonna do, I've got some old C500 motors back here. Where are they? Ah, yes, they're right back here, but they still have the wheels attached to them. So I think what I'm gonna do is pull those things out of there. And then since I know those motors are sealed and they're not gonna be leaking, like these ones, I don't know if laying them on their side is gonna be an issue. I'm gonna have to check all the bolts. And you can see all the grease and grime on these motors. So I don't know if those are leaking already, but those Permobil ones, I'm just gonna mount them vertically here on the side of the cart. Actually, I'll probably put them on the other side just because of weight distribution and also the Arnett controllers over there. That way those can just be out of the way. I don't think on the Arnett stuff I'm ever gonna have to swap out motors. I don't usually need to test motors that are on Permobils and other things. And if I do, I can just throw them up top here. Whereas Invacare and Quantum, I'm gonna be testing a lot of different motors and also programming controllers. We are working on, where'd it go? Well, there's another chair back there. And I'm gonna be working on installing the high-speed motors on a Jazzy 600, which, ironically enough, uses the Quantum style connector, even though it's Pride, which is also Invacare. It gets confusing in a hurry. That's why this bench is gonna be handy. So yeah, for now, that's where we're at. I've been charging those batteries. They seem to be charging fine. I've got the charger mounted to the cart. There we go. There's our charger right there, and it's just plugged into a random sacrificial Stark style joystick for now. So as far as the adapter cable, what I'm doing is just basically running some little 1/4-20 bolts through the battery eyelets on each side. And that's going to make us a nice cable with an Anderson connector on one end and PG drive / Arnett on the other. There's so much fuse protection on this setup, it's not even funny. These are fuses on each one here, which this system's never going to be under a load, so it won't be an issue. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some electrical tape and probably cut a piece of tubing and put it over this and then tape the whole thing up. And we will have an adapter cable. A really long adapter cable, but an adapter cable nonetheless. So it turns out all I had was this super high-end transmission cooler line. This stuff is impervious to razor blades and diagonal cutters. It took me about 20 minutes to cut 2 pieces of this and slice it in half. But the idea is to just put it on like this, and then that'll kind of support the edges of the connections and some of the sharp edges. And I will grab the electrical tape and we will tape this like there's no tomorrow. Yeah. This stuff's like $8 a foot, by the way. We're coming right along. Probably doesn't look like I've made much progress, but we've got, by the way, this is just connected to the charger. Actually, I don't even need that right now. So here's our, go away. Okay, so here's our adapter we made. These cables are big and they don't like being flexed, so it kind of took some work. And I'm using a bunch of these wire clips here. Those are left over from when I used to install satellite TV. But we've got our big honking ugly thing, and it goes down here and plugs into the battery. And then basically right now, the way it's working is you unplug the one you're not using and plug in the one you want to use. At some point, I might make a pigtail that has several Anderson connectors. Although I don't know. It'd probably be good to put a battery disconnect on here also. Actually, I'll just unplug them, whatever, it's fine. If we had 3 of these things sitting here, the parasitic draw would be off the charts. So, yeah. Just kind of finishing up some of the wiring here. We've got, for our 3 control systems, we've got the pigtails so they're removable, and you can plug in other joysticks. I'm working on getting all this stuff coiled up. So the only thing left to do right now is wire up this Quantum, and I do believe, luckily someone threw this in the middle of the floor, I do believe the cable we need for that is over here on this chair. I think I need to flip it down. It should be, it's back there somewhere. But yeah, we're dangerously close to getting this thing so it's pretty much functional. Oh, I think what I'm going to tackle right now is mounting up those Permobil motors. I'm going to figure out a way to just dangle them, to hang them from the side of the cart over here. Then we'll figure out how we want to lay all this out and see about motors leaking and grease and stuff like that. But anyways, yeah, coming right along. Oh, so I should probably test the RNet. I think we're hooked up. Hey, it's alive! Brake air. Alright, cool. That means we don't have any motors connected, which is fine. Oh, this joystick has lights on it. Man, this thing has had a rough life. Alright, cool. Okay, my back is sore. I've been sitting on the floor a little bit, but we've made some pretty decent progress here. So, I was able to get 2 of the Permobil C500 motors attached here. And what was super awesome is the bolts that hold them onto the chassis of the chair were perfect. All I had to do was drill holes here, run the bolts through to the inside, and then stick a couple of nuts on here to hold them in place, and we're done. So these just hang here. We've got the brake. Oh, I guess I need to reattach that brake. We've got our brake mechanisms. Don't need to worry about those. But yeah, this is great. And then I kind of got some of the wiring tidied up. By the way, in case you hadn't noticed, electrical and wiring and circuit layout is kind of my jam. So I'm a little bit picky when it comes to getting this stuff done. And I've got a whole bunch of these little, they're 1/4 inch. Actually, these are left over from when I did satellite TV installation. They're designed for holding the, well, right here. They're designed for holding coax on walls. As you can see, I need to install a few up there. But yeah, we're coming right along here. Let me unplug the charger. I think I need to reprogram this chair because I turn it on and if I go through the profiles, it says V6AT fast, which is not compatible with a stock Permobil controller. So right now, if I try to make it move, it's inhibited. I can flash a different version of the firmware on there and it'll be fine. The other option would be to, let's see, which connector is it? I believe it's this guy right here. Pull this plug out and jump these 2 wires together. Actually, maybe it was that one. Actually, I'll have to check. I've got a diagram. I made some notes about it. But yeah, if I didn't want to play around with all that, I could just jumper those 2. Because the V6 versus the Permobils, V6 for example, the way the inhibits are set up are slightly different. I went ahead and just hard mounted all this stuff for the Permobil here because, like I said before, I'm never going to need to really try different RNet motors. And if I do, I left myself in a slack here so we can just unplug them and plug something else in. And all these controllers are also bolted down. There's bolts and or nuts sticking through on the bottom. Except for this one, I got lazy and used sheetrock deckers to hold that in. But that's fine for now. Trying to get over here in this corner with the drill is a little bit tricky, but yeah. I'm really liking this thing. It's coming together nicely. So I think I'm gonna make some lunch. What time is it? It's about 3:15 now. I'm gonna take a little break, let my back calm down, get some food, and then we will come back and we're on the home stretch. Just need to figure out where to mount those motors, maybe do some alignment pins. I'm not quite sure. Oh, I needed to make sure that these ones aren't gonna leak if they're laying on their side. Oh, that was the other thing. These Permobil motors are never designed to be in this orientation. And actually, now that I think about it, well, we'll see what happens. So this whole area is full of mineral oil, and normally they are like this. There is a seal here, but we've got, it's sitting at the bottom of the oil now. Typically the oil is about half full in here, so we may have to do something different on this. We shall see. I don't know. I'm assuming that seal will hold, but then again, I'm not sure. So that is one potential issue with these, which would be very easy to solve. Just take these off and flip them over. And then to mount them up, I'd probably just have to use some of that plumber's strap to hold the tops in, since the bolts will be on the bottom. By the way, Ryan, those are the motors off your old C500 that you gave me like 2 years ago or whatever. But anyhow, I'll be back. All right, checking in once again. So we've got the Quantum connected now. I was able to pull the wiring off of that chair frame over there, and with some very slight modification, so normally the way these things work, there's two of these Anderson connectors, and the series, the battery connection and the series connection to get 24 volts is kind of built in, and there's a circuit breaker in the middle. So basically all I had to do is pop one of these two wires off one of these connectors, combine them together, and now we can plug this thing into our batteries, like that. And we don't have any motors connected, but that's okay. I just want to make sure that this joystick even works. This thing has kind of been through a war zone. I do have a button, I do have the buttons to put on here from another one that burned the connector. So let's see what happens here. Hey, it looks like it's alive. Oh my gosh. Incompatible device connected. Have I ever mentioned my hatred for Quantum and their stupid firmware? So for QLogic 1, there's three different firmware versions. Two of them are semi-compatible with each other. One of them is not. So this joystick came off of a chair that was really old. This controller has a newer version of the firmware on it. Now, in theory, you could just flash the firmware to either the... So I think what's happening here is I think the joystick is on the oldest version of the firmware, and the controller is probably on the second or third version. Now, normally you would think, oh, I'll just plug in a programmer and fix it. No, you can't do that. If you get that error on startup, you have to find a compatible joystick to even change the programming. Luckily, I have the controller that matches this joystick out here in the van. So yeah, I'm gonna go swap that out real quick. I did put this down with Phillips screws, so probably a good time to swap that over to bolts like everything else. But I'm gonna go grab that real quick and hook it up. And I think I might be close to done with this thing for today. I'm gonna leave off the part with the motors and trying to figure out how to mount those till later, because I also want to hook up the Permobil ICS system. I've got a full set of actuators that someone sent me from their chair, and I think what we're gonna do is mount all of the actuators over here and the ICS box. And I've got a design idea in my head so I can have just the bare actuators. And because normally when you fire up an actuator, it tries to spin. You have to hold the end of it solid to keep it from rotating for it to actually move. So I've got an idea for a pretty simple design to mount the three actuators on here so they can just slide up and down. And we can troubleshoot and program ICS stuff as well. And then I've also got an ICS switch box laying face down on the floor over here. And I want to get a complete Permobil setup here so that I can show kind of some programming and memory positioning and stuff like that. So I'm going to grab that controller out of the other van. We're going to hook it up, make sure it works. Make sure this joystick is good, because this thing was technically outside, but it was on a balcony of an apartment open to the elements. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of rust and stuff going on here, and these springs don't seem good. So, ew, sticky. Gross. So if that doesn't work, I'll swap out the joystick. I'll have to do some wiring. I've got another one over there that, I know that one works, but it's got a burn connector on it. So, that might take a little bit of work, but yeah, so I'm gonna get this stuff checked out real quick and then start coughing again, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I poached the controller off that other chair. Before we get too crazy mounting everything, I'm going to actually test it first and make sure that was our issue. Okay, plug this guy in. Now let's see if it works. Brake disconnected. Okay, that's a good sign. Let's hook up some motors. Okay, take 37. Hey! Okay, charge inhibit. Why does it say charge inhibit? Oh, there's a cable that needs to plug in there. Let me find that real quick. Okay, so I think on this version of the chair, this auxiliary power input cable here, this is designed so you can power up the seating on the chair without batteries in it. It's got a fuse and stuff. But I think this thing right here is some sort of a jumper or a resistor or something. Hey, we're live. Look at that. Yeah. Oh, it's in kilometers an hour. All right, cool. Well, there we go. I guess the joystick's good. It just looks like garbage and doesn't really return to center, but yeah. All right, that'll do. All right, I do believe we are as done as we're going to be with this thing. I need to do a little bit of programming on the Permobil or the RNet side. For some reason, it'll fire up and it'll try to move the motors, but the brakes are not releasing. I think on these older ones, the brake voltage may be different. I don't have... Well, I need to dig through my backup hard drives and find the file specifically for a C300. Sometimes they use 12 volts, sometimes they're 24 volts on the coil. And I think what's happening is they click, but they're not actually disengaging. So we have some sort of mechanical issue with these motors. Now, I know these motors were on a chair that was working, so I'll just have to figure that out. They fire up, and then they try to move, but then the brakes don't let it. So we'll have to figure that part out. But everything else is working. So say, for example, we want to test an Invacare setup. We've got this here. All I have to do is turn it on. Had to do a little bit of programming changing on this as well, but all we have to do is hit the joystick. Man, those motors sound hideous. These motors only have like 50 miles on them too. These older Invacare ones, they just sounded absolutely horrendous. Okay, so that's enough of that. So let's say we want to test out Quantum. All I have to do is plug this in and fire up our Quantum joystick. Oh, we have to plug in the Quantum joystick. There we go. Now we can turn it on. There we go. Got that thing. We hit the joystick. And we get motors spinning. So we can hook up different motors, test those out. We can swap out controllers. Well, like I was saying before, swapping controllers and joysticks, I'm gonna have to go through my stock of everything and write on them with a Sharpie which versions of the firmware the joysticks and the controllers have. Because to do any sort of meaningful testing, we've got to have stuff that's compatible, obviously. So anyways, at least this works. And then I'm not even gonna turn on the RNet right now because I had to connect up the ICS and I was doing a bunch of stuff. I tried flashing on a non-Permobil firmware and it got cranky. And it got into a mode where the programmer couldn't access it anymore. So I had to hook up the ICS so it could go into seating mode and then, well, yeah, anyways. It is technically working, but we've got that mechanical issue with the brakes. So the nice thing with this setup is it's totally portable and autonomous. Granted, it is extremely heavy, but this Rubbermaid cart has really good wheels that can handle lots of weight. So we've got our charger over here, so we can just uncoil this and plug it into whichever joystick we want to charge with. And then since it's all battery powered, we can just fire it up and do whatever, and we don't need electricity. Eee, look at them go. Let's get some more of the horrendous sounding ASMR Invacare motors. These things are so bad. Sounds like a garbage disposal that's going bad. But yeah, I did have to update the firmware on this joystick, this MK6i one here. But yeah, this thing will be super handy. And actually, while I was building this, I was able to use it to illustrate something for someone. Let me grab a part. So case in point here, this is one of the newer style Permobil joysticks. This actually came from a dumpster, but as you can see, it's a little bit broken, all the buttons are missing, and one of our toggles is broken off here. So the question was, how do you turn the chair on? Well, so I know you're watching this wasn't the exact conversation, but I realize that this setup is good for this sort of thing. But for example, let's say you have this and you have to be able to turn on your chair, but you're missing this toggle. How do you do that? Oddly enough, on these joysticks, you can use a magnet. So I was able to illustrate that. So let's switch over to our RNet here. Plug that in. And then we can plug in this joystick. Didn't leave myself a lot of cable here. I'm gonna have to get another pigtail for this. And check it out. All you have to do is wave the magnet right down here next to the switch. Oh, by the way, this is a magnet on a stick that you use for older style vans to open and close the doors. But all you have to do, I'm gonna turn it off right away. All you have to do is hold it down there and the thing powers up. So, case in point, I've already been able to use this thing. Yeah, it may seem like an odd thing to build, but I think in my particular case, it's going to be very handy for things. And there we go. We got our charger plugged in, so can charge the thing up easily. I'm just plugging it into the cord reel on the ceiling for now. But yeah, I think this is going to be a really handy tool to be able to do some repair stuff, also check out programming, test different parts, actuators, basically just an all-in-one platform for basically 3 different major brands of chairs. I guess technically you could say there's 5 or 6 brands of chairs if you count Pride and Quantum and Invacare. They all kind of crossbreed a little bit, but anyways, I think it's a really handy thing. I've been wanting to build it for a while. It was one of those deals where I couldn't really plan it out. I just kind of had to start grabbing stuff and bolting things together and making it work. I had no idea what it was going to look like when I was done, but I just started grabbing things and screwing stuff together and bolting things down, and yeah, I think it, running over things, I think it turned out pretty good. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed.